This is Mikey Mason, and you're listening to Why We Game.
I'm Brodor, and my guest this episode is Walker. Is it Shul Fitzroy?
Yes.
Is that so hyphenated?
Shul is right.
Is that your wife's name?
No, it's Shul. That's my middle name.
Oh, is it really? So
yeah.
you just do the whole like a serial killer.
Sure.
So how many bodies do you have under your belt? So Walker, you are a retailer in the St. Louis area. In fact, if I had my druthers, I would say that you are one of the principal directions of retailers in St. Louis. So we've got north, south, east, west, right? We've got Dave Wallace, Steve Lucinski, Sam Brome, and Walker Fitzroy, who are all people that I have known for years who have all been hustling the retail game as hobbyists, right? So that's why you're my guest on the show today, is that to me, you are one of the principal retailers in my area. And anybody who lives in the Midwest knows that St. Louis is a glut for choice in great gaming stores.
Yes, it is.
We're very fortunate. So how are things going with Game Nite, your shop, during the time of COVID?
Well, it's been really touch and go. We were closed for 2 months. We closed down as soon as the county closed down. We went ahead and closed our doors. Just didn't feel safe. We didn't want to infect members of the community. And then we opened mid-May, and a very small percentage of our original sales. Our business model is built on community. Having people in the store playing games, and then the impulse buys, or I'm here, I might as well pick something up, or or the people that if I play in a store, I want to support the store.
So I'm getting a little ahead of myself because usually I'll talk about your business on the back nine and talk about you on the first nine. But I am curious. A lot of retailers to whom I've spoken are adapting their business to do more online sales during this turbulent time. Is that something that you guys are doing?
We're doing a little. We're working on our eBay presence. We're putting a lot more up on eBay. We also work through Teespring for Game Nite merchandise. T-shirts, masks, leggings, coffee mugs, that all have the Game Nite logo on it. And then we're going to be looking into designer T-shirts.
I love having shop swag so, different people can represent their individual shops. So you're 51 years old.
Yes.
So you are what I would call a Gen 2 gamer with my working, gamer generation theory. How did you get into gaming? Because you're born, late 60s, early 70s.
69. I got into gaming when I was 10. For Christmas, my parents got me the red box and the blue box.
Wow.
For D&D. Basic and expert sets.
So here you are. It's Christmas morning. Here's the tree. It's got all probably covered in that absolutely toxic and highly flammable silver tinsel.
Yes.
And you open up and you've got the red box and the blue box. How cool is that?
Yeah. I think my parents realized then what they were getting me into.
So did you have buddies at the time, or was D&D something that you had friends that were playing, or did you see it at a bookstore and just think, I want to give that a shot?
I had a friend that introduced me to it one day over to his house, and it was great. I loved it. I had a lot of fun, and I had mentioned it to my parents.
And they just went out to the shop. Yep. Wow. Did you have to guide them to the thing? Or?
No.
So here we are, 10 years old. It's 1979.
Yeah.
Dungeons and Dragons is only a few years old at this point, and your parents didn't have any objection to you getting into this alien thing?
No, fortunately my parents were very open-minded, so they didn't see it as a satanic cult, was almost the norm at the time. Everyone's like, oh, you play D&D.
Well, so for most of us, Dungeons and Dragons was our first, right?
Yeah.
Like our first love, and we'll never forget that. After Dungeons and Dragons, though, what was the next game that you thought, I want to give that a shot?
So in high school, we played a lot of the old fastest Star Trek. We played that. But D&D was our primary game.
So you're hyper intelligent because if you can play the Starfleet Fleet Command,
the
old
Starfleet battles.
Oh my God, that's way too rich for my blood. That requires a level of intellect that I don't possess.
And then we got into BattleTech.
Oh, of course, yeah, with the delicious scrub away armor.
Oh, love BattleTech. It's clunky, it's long, and it's so much fun.
So what do you play today?
So today, I still play BattleTech. I think, of course, 5th edition D&D. We're going through Curse of Strahd right now. My group is. That's been a lot of fun. And the other thing, I think my favorite game system right now, though, is probably Fantasy Flight's Genesis system. I love the Star Wars RPG.
Now, for people who may not be familiar, the Genesis system is Fantasy Flight Games custom dice, right?
Yes.
And so L5R has its own dice, and Star Wars has its own dice, and so you're very much into the Star Wars game?
Yes.
You don't find it too finicky?
No. I love it. Edge of Empire is great. We play primarily that where, it's more the smugglers and bounty hunters and less Jedi. It's more, the Mandalorian.
Well, it's interesting, too, among role players, in my experience, I find that Jedi are very much a divider of people, right? A lot of people that I know that are very into Star Wars don't want Jedi. Conversely, people like myself who are casual Star Wars fans, you're going to give me a flippin' space wizard with a laser sword? Dude, I'm in. And that's exactly the game that I want to play. Like, I want to do Gestalt Dungeons and Dragons where I play a 20th level wizard / 20th level fighter. Just go out and kick butt, right? Yeah. That's what I want. What about the Star Wars game? What about those mechanics speak to you?
I think it's, with proprietary dice they use and the symbols and everything, it's very, more narrative than I think D&D. It isn't, you rolled a hit. Well, in Star Wars, when the roll determines whether you hit and can also determine if maybe something good or something bad happens, or, even if you miss, something good could still happen depending on the result on the dice.
Yeah, now I have heard people say, and I don't know if you feel this way, I have heard people say that game, when you play, feels quintessentially Star Wars. A sort of thing you can't define. Yeah. So that's been your experience as well?
Yes, definitely.
How well do those three, in your experience, how well do the three, Edge of Empire, Age of Rebellion, and the Jedi one whose name escaped me?
Force and Destiny.
Thank you, Force and Destiny. How well do they blend with one another if you want to play a character from one book to the next?
I think they do a really good job of blending. There's really only one mechanic that's different between the three games, and that's the it escapes me what they call it. I'm having a complete brain freeze.
That's all right. But there's a mechanic in the game.
Yeah, there's a mechanic in the game.
I gotcha.
It'll come to me once we're done.
So you've gamed since you were a kid. Have you ever taken a break from gaming? Has there been a gap in your life where you walked away from it?
Not really. I pretty much for the last 40 years, it's, just different games though. We played in the 90s, of course. It was Vampire Masquerade.
Oh, sure. Well, and it's interesting too, because when I asked the question about book compatibility, White Wolf was one of the first things that popped in my head.
Yeah.
Because as far as those things being compatible in the 90s, they really pooped the bed.
Yeah, they did.
I'm trying to watch my language. I usually am very profane, but we're in your store, so I'm trying to put in the good words.
We didn't get into too many of the others, like Werewolf or Mage, Changeling. We were primarily
Did you LARP?
Masquerade. I actually did not start LARPing until about 2 or 3 years ago.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes.
Well, that's all right. So, did you smoke clove cigarettes?
No.
All right. But you LARP now.
Yeah.
Do you currently smoke clove cigarettes?
No, I do not.
Okay, you don't. So, what LARP are you in?
We actually ran one here in the store. We had a vampire LARP when 5th edition came out.
I have to cross myself when you say 5th edition because Ken Hite is my hero, and so I have to pay homage to him.
And I think they made some really good changes in the system. I think that the hunger mechanic actually makes feeding much more a part of the game, where I think in older vampire games it was
like feeding in Dungeons and Dragons. You're just like, well, we just mark food off.
Roll some dice and hey, we're done. No, it was very much, a part of the game, and it was more I feel 5th edition's more a game of personal horror than previous editions. But when that came out, we actually started a LARP here in the store that ran for about a year and a half, and then COVID happened. So we went ahead and ended the story, kind of wrapped things up.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that because normal around the table board gaming, card gaming, role playing, I didn't even think about LARPs.
I mean, we would have 20, 25 people in here playing, and you just can't do that right now.
Right. You're still doing events though, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we're hosting small events. Usually we just try and keep one event a night and try and keep it limited to 8 to 10 people. That way we can control the number of people in the store. We do offer open game play. We're doing a $5 charge right now per person, just again to try and control the number of people that are in the store.
Right. Well, I don't think that's unreasonable. I mean, that's something, and I'll put a pin in it for now, but the consumer as a general rule does not have a firm understanding about how the metrics and how the money in the game industry work. And so a lot of people recoiled at the idea that you would charge them to use game space, but we'll come back to that.
Okay.
You have 3 kids?
Yes.
And do your children game?
They're getting into D&D. They 2 of them are a part of the D&D club at school. But again, kind of on hold.
Alien is that? A D&D club at school.
Yeah.
I can't even conceive of such a thing. When we were young, there's no way that would happen.
I mean, when we were young, we didn't even want to admit that we played D&D. It's like, oh my God, you play D&D? Do you worship Satan also? No.
If your kids are just now getting into Dungeons and Dragons, I assume that this is something that they've been exposed to for all of their lives since you've never taken a break from it. They just never gravitated toward it? Or was it a rebellious, dad's into it, so I'm not gonna be?
I think it was more, they gravitated more towards video games.
Oh, sure.
I know, they love Overwatch, Fallout, Dragon Age. So, I mean, they got into RPGs, but they got into the electronic version for a while.
Did they ever express any interest in the crossover RPGs for a couple of those video games you mentioned, like Fallout and Dragon Age?
Not really. Not really. I think it's they're still just getting exposed.
Right, it's a generational thing too. I mean, it's different, the sort of tactile sensation that we appreciate versus the digital sensation that younger generations are.
Right now, my group's playing on Roll20, and I absolutely hate playing on Roll20.
Okay.
Because again, like you said, that tactile feeling, I can't roll the dice. It's hit a button and get your results. And and feeling the energy in the room, you don't have that over the computer.
Right. It's like taking the bar off of a slot machine, right? Like I mean, I understand that essentially it makes no difference and that a random number is being generated, but I need to pull the bar. I need to grab the one-arm bandit, So how do you like Roll20? I loathe online gaming for a variety of reasons. However, I will also admit that I am prejudiced and I've never played on Roll20, so I have no idea how it works. What's it like?
I guess for online it's good.
Okay.
There you go. I'm like you. I loathe online playing. Yeah. To me, it's more of a personal experience, getting together with your friends and eating food that's really bad for you and getting off on all kinds of pop culture tangents while playing. But with Roll20 though, they do a good job with, tracking your character. It's set up to where, you can just hit a button and it does, for your spell, and it gives you the hit and the damage, right off your sheet.
Well, that's kind of nice.
Yeah, and it is, and you can move your figures around on the maps. So, that's cool, but it's just not personal.
Yeah, it's not the same. There's no communal gathering like you have in the sense of, we as animals sitting around the fire telling stories, and I love that. When you decided that you were going to do this for a living, was the social aspect a motivator to you? Because you don't do a lot with online sales, but you have, what's your square footage here?
7,000 square feet.
You've got 7,000 square foot game store and gaming space, right? And not much of an online presence. Was the physical social interaction with members of the tribe the thing that motivated you, or was it a factor in opening a shop? How did you start?
So it wasn't really initially. When we started, my dad had pretty much retired from his law practice. And
so your father's an attorney as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they wanted to open a store. And at that point I'd had probably about 20 years of retail experience. And I'm like, well, yeah, I can do that. And I mean, it was just an obvious choice to open up a game store because that's where my experience is. My product knowledge was in gaming. At least I thought so at the time.
You thought so. So, and this was not Game Nite. This was a different retail location?
This was, my original location, was Game On. It was about 1,700 square feet, in Valley Park. And, I realized that there was a lot more to gaming than just role-playing games. I got, going to like Archon, I'd been exposed to some of the board games out there. I knew what Catan was, but I didn't realize how big Eurogaming was, because I grew up playing Risk, Monopoly, all the American games, and then just miniature gaming. My only real exposure to miniature gaming before that was Battletech. I knew 40K existed, and then a friend of mine's like, well, no, you need to carry War Machine. If you're going to open up a store, you have to carry War Machine. And he demonstrated War Machine, and I got hooked into miniature gaming because of that.
War Machine, that is a fascinating subject.
Yes,
because
it is.
Games, and I don't know how closely audience members follow things, but games generally have a tendency to be regional, but the St. Louis area, we've always had a reputation for being very cliquish. And we are a great example of, you pick a municipality, and there are people that play a game in this group, this cluster of municipalities, and people across the river that don't. Game Nite has always had a reputation as being the place to play War Machine. Is that partially because you got into War Machine and you championed it at your shops?
Partially, yeah. A lot of the employees that I ended up hiring too were from the War Machine community. So if someone came in saying, hey, I'm looking for a miniature game, we didn't take them to 40K. We didn't take them to Fantasy. We took them over to War Machine, and it was something we were all very passionate about. So it was easy for us to sell.
Well, and the models were great.
Oh, yeah.
It was new, and it had a fire behind it. And as a competitor of yours at the time, I don't know anybody who could keep up. I mean, Miniature Market could maybe sell the game, but nobody else could. I mean, nobody held a candle to the events that you had.
I think to a certain degree that hurt us.
Really?
In the long run. Because it became, Game Nite. You want to play War Machine, you go to Game Nite. So other stores stopped carrying it. Or if they were carrying it, they really didn't push it because they really didn't have a big community. So other stores in the area weren't generating new players and helping the community grow. So I think it reached a plateau for us.
Well, and it's interesting too to consider something that publishers should take into consideration. If you're promoting a miniatures game, you need to be very aware of where people are playing and how your game is being promoted, because I know, and just as an example from my experience, oftentimes the people that represent the game are not employees of the company, most of the time, in fact, and the company doesn't necessarily do a great job of vetting those individuals or following up with their labors.
And I think that's something Privateer Press did a very good job of in the beginning with their press ganger corps. To become a press ganger, you had to be vetted by a store. You had to have 2 painted armies to show that, you understood the hobby aspect as well, and had to have, a good knowledge of the rules. And at least in St. Louis, most of the press gangers were very, very active. They tried to go to other stores also.
But again, in the defense of those press gangers, as a retailer, people don't understand how hard it is to get into a miniature game. Because you can't do it half-assed, right? You can't just get a starter box and throw it on the shelf because nobody gives a shit. Pardon my language. You need to go in. You need to have the game and have a working knowledge of it and have a nice presentation of product on the shelf. We just never did that.
Yeah, I think at one point we had every SKU for War Machine.
Now, do you guys still have a strong community for it all these years later?
There's still, I think, there's still a core community of players. A lot of them have been around since the beginning. I think when Privateer ended up disbanding the Press Ganger Corps, I think that hurt a lot, because you didn't have that person in the store that would push it. And when, employees, if they're busy, they don't have necessarily time to devote half an hour, 45 minutes to someone, where the Press Ganger would, and really explain the game and, show people what they needed to get into it and make recommendations. Where with it, just a store employee, they have maybe 5-10 minutes to go over it, and then, they've got other customers they've got to deal with.
So your first store, when did you close that?
So we closed in 2009. The recession hit us really hard. The first 2 years we were open, we were growing at a pretty good pace, but that last year we actually saw a drop in sales, and it wasn't sustainable.
So then how long was it before you joined the Game Nite team?
So it was about a year later. 2 years later it was at Daikon in 2011. Chris was trying to get everything set up and get open before
this is
the
Chris
doors
Brysock,
open.
The original owner.
Yes.
Okay.
And they weren't sure if they were going to be able to get everything done on time, so they called me up and said, "Hey, you want to come out and help us get our booth set up?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure." And so, I went out there and helped them, and throughout the weekend, did some sales for them. And Chris is like, do you want a job?
And you were like,
yeah.
What were you doing at the time?
At the time, I was working for an environmental engineering firm. I was doing air quality tests at asbestos abatement sites.
That sounds like I need a hazmat suit.
Yeah, and a respirator.
Yuck. So you're like, well, just forget it. I'm going to have the opportunity to go work at a game store.
Yeah.
So I assume that you took a significant pay cut to come work in the game store?
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
It's worth every penny.
Oh, I could be making probably so much more money right now if I'm working as a store manager at a big box retailer or something, but I wouldn't have a soul.
Yeah. But now, Game Nite's been around for a while. Mm-hmm. You've not always been the owner, but mm-hmm. you are the owner currently. Yeah. Now that you're running the shop by yourself, what direction do you want to take things? The future of our industry as a hobby industry is it's unclear. The crystal ball is murky right now, right? And so what do you see for the future of your store, for the future of the industry?
I think the days of just a pure game store are going away. There's too much online that you have to compete with. You definitely need a play space, and you need to create an experience within the store that makes people want to come here instead of playing in their basement and just buying off Amazon. So it's about community building, so people can come here and they can find other people that like the same games. So, they don't have to play the same 3 or 4 guys over and over again. And I think one of the things we're looking into is doing more of a social media presence. We're looking into starting up like a Patreon page where, we can have videos with game unboxings or, instructional videos on how to play the game, or on, how to paint miniatures, doing a lot more of the hobby aspects of the gaming industry. And then, just generating revenue from the Patreon page. And then having an online presence as well, whether it's eBay, Amazon, or your own, website.
That's the idea of doing a Patreon as a retailer is mm-hmm. interesting to me. So you would do video content mm-hmm. and that sort of thing for the Patreon, but obviously it would not be required. Would you guys do free content?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So you're gonna,
first one's always free.
very, very well. Do you have a person who does social media for you? Because that's a full-time gig, right? I mean, you can spend a lot of time during the day doing Facebook posts and Twitter. Mm-hmm. How do you keep up with it?
Actually, here it's more of a team effort. You know, we're all posting. You know, LaRon, who is our event coordinator, will put up events. Kat will quite often, if a new product comes in, you know, she'll throw up a picture of it and a little blurb about the description. You know, Carl and I are always on there answering people's questions on Messenger. It's a community effort here.
Right. And there was a time where, I don't know if you're still running it, but you were doing a GoFundMe for the shop as well.
Yeah.
So what was the impetus behind that?
We went through a really rough patch, in sales. This last Christmas was a lot weaker than we were used to. And we reached out to the community and said, hey, we're struggling. We just need some help.
Why do you think that the last Christmas was weaker than normal? Because it was, I mean, you could make an argument that COVID was happening in December, January, right?
Yeah.
But what about Christmas season that year do you think had it, or that holiday shopping season, what made it weaker than years past?
Honestly, we're not entirely sure. Whether it was just more people buying online, or what. We saw a significant drop, you know, and when I go out and, you know, buy X amount of product expecting to make X amount of money and I don't come close to that, it's hard to come back from.
As far as one of the things that you had said earlier before you and I started recording, was that there has been a lack of product releasing. Now, December of 2019, did you see less product than normal? Do you think that was a factor, or the reduction in product as a result of the pandemic?
A little of both.
Okay. Because the life cycle of a product, I mean, when a game hits the shelf, a brand new game, it's been, 18, 24 months that game actually came to fruition, had its completed prototype, and then starts going in the production process. So the product that you should be seeing today should have been conceived, a year and a half, 2 years ago. So why do you think that you're seeing, I mean, I don't know, right? I'm not plugged in like you are. Why do you think you're seeing a reduction in product releases? Is it just post-Gen Con dearth, or?
Partially that. I think partially it is COVID. China was shut down for a while, and most of the industry does all the manufacturing in China. So that definitely had an impact. COVID definitely had an impact on that.
I've spoken to a few retailers. I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but I have heard some objections to, conversely, the massive product dumps that retailers have been getting, specifically from Wizards of the Coast. Mm-hmm. Has that been a detriment to you? So the opposite side of the coin, not getting enough product, now somebody's just dumping product on you.
That's been a challenge. I mean, Magic in particular, because it just seems like in the last 6 months, you've gotten a new Magic set every month. And that's a very large capital outlay every time a new Magic set comes out, especially when you got the week of the pre-release. So you got to buy all your pre-release product. And then the next week when the rest of the product comes out, and, you have to plan to have, several $1,000s set aside saying, okay, I need this to buy the product.
Right. And if the WotCs have manipulated the market, well, then you've run out of product on week 2.
Yes.
And so you must reorder a product for week 3.
Right.
Yeah.
And with, Magic, the margins on Magic are not as good as a lot of our other product, because, there's a lot of online retailers out there that heavily discount Magic. So it's easy to find, booster boxes at $100. And as a, retail store, I can't compete with that pricing.
Why is that? Now, okay, Brodor, I know the answer to this question, and you and I can talk for hours as to why. But for the person who is not a retailer, why is it so challenging to compete with those margins?
Well, a lot of people that are selling them at $100 a box, they don't have a 7,000 square foot store. They don't have, 6 to 10 employees that they're paying. They don't have the electric that they're paying on such a large location. Their overhead is very low. So, they don't need to make as much money per box because pretty much everything they make is going into their pocket instead of going into an electric company's pocket, a landlord's pocket, other employees' pockets. They don't have the bills to pay that, a normal game store has.
So you've got a lot of overhead that eats into that margin the online retailer does not. Do you think that the online retailer pays less for a box of Magic than you do to a distributor?
First, it depends on the distributor.
Gotcha.
Because some manufacturers have rules in place to help the game stores. Not allowing just online retailers to be able to just buy at the same price level. But there's others that buy in such large quantities that they do get a better price on the product than smaller stores do.
Ergo, they can afford to sell it for the $100 a box versus the $143.64 retail that it would be. Gotcha. So do you do secondary market for Magic? Do you do resale cards?
Yeah, we do singles.
How is that business going?
I mean, when we first did it, it went really well for us, and we had a large community bringing in a lot of cards that we were able to flip. We even had it set up to where it was all electronic. You could come in, go to a computer and see what we had in inventory, make up a list of what you wanted, and we pulled it. So you didn't have to spend hours going through boxes. Yeah. But we did have some people complain because they like doing that sort of thing. And I get that. I think we've seen over the last few years, though, an actual drop in single sales. We attribute a lot of that to the growing popularity of Magic Arena. You have more players now. They're playing online, and all the cards are digital.
I'm going to float something by it.
Okay.
And I don't want to put you in a corner. I know you're a retailer, so I don't. This is Brodor's conspiracy theory and not Walker's. I think that Wizards of the Coast is making a concerted effort behind the scenes to tank the secondary market. They've always said that they don't care about the secondary market, that they're not involved in it, and yet recently there have been product releases that have really, really done some damage to the secondary market. I think digital is their future. I think they want to get away from printing paper cards entirely. I think it's just a matter of how quickly they think they can comfortably do it without killing their market.
Honestly, I think that would be a mistake on their part. I think, the game stores, they bring in a lot of their new clientele. This is how you grow your game.
But that's my fear for the future of our industry, right? You and I care about sitting down at the table and playing a game face to face, but your kids would rather play video games. What are their kids going to do? I mean, assuming they have children, but right?
Well, at that point, they just, jack in.
Oh my God, how flippin' cool would that be? Right? Now that's what I'm going to online game is when it's virtual reality and I can feel the D20 in my hand, even though I'm not holding an actual D20, but I can roll that MFer and see the ogre. Oh God, that'd be so cool. But I'm not going to live long enough to see that.
I think there's enough of us that like the social aspect, being in the room with other people playing the game, and just feeling the energy and just feeling the die in your hand.
So it's sort of like paper comics, right? Yeah. Paper comic books. Mm-hmm. You don't think that Magic's gonna go down that road?
I really don't think. I think Wizards are smart enough. They know where their customers come from.
Even though we have seen during the pandemic, see, that's my theory, right? Is that during this last 6 months, they have seen, I don't need to run FNM, right? I can produce cards, but is that just sort of whetting the appetite of audience to get people to get into the game and then, oh, hey, here's a free promo code for Arena. That's what I worry about, right? And that's why I'm stoked about miniature gaming because I love toy soldiers and you can't replace it yet.
You can't paint a virtual miniature. And that, maybe where the hobby goes, or the industry goes is, game stores focus more on miniature games and board games and less on card games. We'll see, fewer and fewer card shops.
What is your take as a retailer on the large companies, right? So essentially the big three, as I like to put them, the big three publicly traded, Games Workshop, Wizards of the Coast, or Hasbro, and Asmodee North America. Now, Asmodee is just scooping up more and more and more and more. And I don't know, that those three individuals make me a little bit uncomfortable. And I have this idea, I think that Asmodee on the other side of this pandemic is gonna make a big move. Cause I think that, I mean, they're working with ACD now, right?
Yes.
I think they're buying them. I think they're gonna buy ACD. I think that's the first step.
But for a long time, people were saying they were going to buy Alliance.
So here's the thing. And again, I can't tell you how I know this, but I know this. Geppy never sold a business that he's never, ever, ever sold a business that he's bought. Not one. He's never done it. Doesn't want to do it. And that's why the deal broke up, is because Asmodee wants to buy Alliance. Geppy doesn't want to do it, and so they bail. I don't think it had anything to do with the quality of service. I don't think it had anything to do with money. I think it had everything to do with Asmodee's aspirations to be a big flippin' deal, bigger deal than they already are. So, how is your experience as a retailer dealing with them directly?
So I've only been doing it for about 6 months, but it's been pretty positive. I've got a good rep, and I mean they're going through some growing pains, I think, in figuring out how to do their own distribution. But I haven't really had any major issues dealing with them. And
your Asmodee rep is an Asmodee rep,
yes.
Not an ACD rep?
No, okay. Asmodee rep. Oh. Yeah, I get direct from Asmodee. They've said that the reason they went with ACD also is just so people have a second choice. And there have been times when Asmodee's been out of something that ACD's had in stock, or I need a little bit extra to make a minimum order. My only concern with going direct with Asmodee, and I know a lot of other companies have tried to go direct. Privateer Press wants people to go direct. Is that I have to order certain amounts of product over the course of a year.
I'm confused.
Okay.
You said Privateer Press wants people to go direct to Privateer Press?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I was confused. I was like, wait a minute. Is there a Privateer Press Asmodee union that we're aware of?
No, but some companies are moving towards going direct instead of going through a distributor. But I have certain order levels I have to hit to make my discounts. So with Asmodee now, with me ordering directly from Asmodee, now I'm not ordering as much from ACD, so it makes it harder to hit my order levels from them to get the discount percentages.
Right. So when you go to your distributor, it's not like walking into the gas station and buying a la carte. There's a minimum order amount that you have to place.
Right. And then over the course of time, I have to order so much from them in order to get the discounts that I get. The more I order, the bigger the discount.
Gotcha. So they tier their discounts,
yes.
And they say, oh, okay, Game Nite is tier 1 because they order X number of dollar amount from us, so they get Y percentage. But you're ordering less, so you're basically dropping in tier.
Mm-hmm.
Does Asmodee then, like, you go to order something from Asmodee and they don't have it, but ACD does?
Yeah.
You're paying an ACD price and not an Asmodee price.
Correct.
Okay, so they're not as far along as I expect. What is your take on professional organizations in the industry? I know that the Game Manufacturers Association, they also have been going through some growing pains this year as well. Not just dealing with COVID, but also they've had some, issues with Black Lives Matter and different social movements that are going on. I have always seen GAMA as a good and valuable organization, but I'm just one opinion. What are you a GAMA member?
I am a GAMA member, yes.
And what value do you see in them as an organization?
I think they're going to GAMA. I've always enjoyed, and it's a good place to go and network with other gamers, other game store owners, meet manufacturers. I enjoy going to the seminars and seeing and learning about how other game store retailers run their business. So I think GAMA is really good at bringing the industry together, and then they, I think they're good for people just starting to get into the industry because they can help you with insurance, setting up merchant services, just finding people to help mentor you.
Other than GAMA, are there other retailers or other people who have mentored you in the industry? Is there, aside from Chris Prysock, right? Is there somebody that has helped develop and influence you as a retailer?
No one in particular. There are, like on Facebook, there's a lot of industry groups, game store groups, gaming groups, where, you can post saying, hey, I've got this idea. Am I crazy or what? And, you get the input from a lot of other retailers. I'd have to say Dave Wallace has probably had some influence,
I have a love-hate relationship with that man. So, you cannot say anything too positive or too negative for me.
I grew up with the Fantasy Shop. That was my game store. And
so you're lifelong Midwesterner.
Yes.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. And I read Dave's book on running a game store, and, it really showed me that, at least for a store, discounting is not healthy. Yeah. But I never really agree, because I know he isn't really a fan of PlaySpace.
No, it's funny you say that, because I actually interviewed Dave, and that's a conversation we had, because I'm in the Walker School of thought that a PlaySpace is essential.
Yeah. Yeah, it brings people in. If people are in here playing games and, oh, hey, I left my dice at home. There's dice available, or, oh, wait, I didn't know this book came out.
Earlier in the conversation, you had alluded to the future of the industry and how product mix and things are changing, right? And that you can't just be a normal game store anymore. Right. You can't just put games on the shelf and people will come in and buy it. What avenue do you want to explore? I mean, we've got this beautiful, large game space. What do you want to do next with this? What's the next element that you add to the shop that gives you competitive edge?
Running events. I think running larger events, and
so not food service, alcohol.
No, that's on the table.
Right.
Actually, before the pandemic, we had actually just gotten our liquor license.
Oh, right. What an insufferable pain in the ass was that?
It actually wasn't too difficult.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Now
it's not actually hard to do in the state of Missouri. I know other places it can be very difficult. The hardest part is just getting together all the paperwork, and then you just take it down in the ATF. They'll go over it. They'll help you say, you need to change this, or bring this in or fill this out differently. They were actually really helpful.
Now, I'm going to call BS that the government was actually helpful in filling out forms. I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt, but I find that a bitter pill, right? A difficult, large horse pill to swallow, that they were friendly and helpful.
We have since kind of just let it expire right now, because we're just not really...
Yeah, why bother?
Yeah, if we're not running big events. But I think, that's definitely one way to go. But when I say running big events, like, reaching out to like corporations and doing like team building events to where, they can bring in people and we teach them how to play board games that, again, foster teamwork.
Oh, sure. Because you could do really cool stuff with cooperative games, Dungeons and Dragons as team building exercise. I think it's a super cool idea.
Yeah.
There was a time, and I don't know if you still do this, but Game Nite was running board game rooms for big conventions like the local Wizard World Comic Con, right? You guys were doing their board game room. Do you still do any traveling for cons?
No. No. We had a good deal worked out with Wizard World that made it viable. But as just a game store, just going out on the road, having to pay for hotel space, play for convention space, again, just really eats into the profit margins. It's just not really a good business model for us.
No, I agree with you completely. I've heard from many people, you run into them at a show and they're like, why don't you have a booth? I'm like, because I pay for a store. Yeah. I have a store. So now I got to pay you to bring stuff to sell at a lower price than I would in my... No!
Wizard World, it worked out for us because we actually got our booth for free because we were running their game space.
Oh, no, that's a deal right there. So you get comped.
But then they went a different direction, and basically any event they were running, if it wasn't immediately generating them revenue, they didn't want to do it. So they unfortunately dropped us.
Have you guys talked about doing a food service? Because I've got my bottle of water here is on a coaster that is Game Nite and Pieces in the St. Louis area. Got a really neat board game cafe called Pieces. So question one, do you have some sort of deal with Pieces? And question two, Are you, have you considered putting in food service?
So we're running a deal with Pieces where if someone brought in a Pieces receipt, they got a discount. Or if they took our receipt to Pieces, I believe they got their $5 fee waived. We were doing that for a while.
Gotcha.
Really haven't done it pandemic and all.
Right, of course.
But yeah, we have considered, maybe bringing in like freezers and having frozen microwavable food.
Yeah.
You know, I'd rather do something like that than actually have a kitchen and have to deal with the health department.
Right.
And so we were thinking, you know, pre-made stuff that you can just throw in a microwave. So that's one direction that we are considering going.
Yeah, that's a much safer bet, like you said, than having to put up with all the malarkey of actual, because I can't imagine having somebody come in and do an inspection of, yuck.
That's why when we went with the liquor license too, we went with just bottles.
Oh, okay.
We didn't want to do anything on tap because then you have to get involved with the health department.
Gotcha. So when you got your liquor license, there's different tiers or different modes you can get? Mm-hmm. Okay. So then when your shop shut down for a couple of months, did you have to lay your employees off? Did they get unemployment or?
They were all able to apply for employment.
Gotcha. Yeah. Cause that's gotta suck. And then I'm assuming that you were getting the paycheck protection.
Yeah.
Gotcha. And how did that working out for you?
Yeah. That's actually what it helped enable us to reopen.
But it sounds like, just based on the traffic that I have seen and your attitude today, it seems like that you're coming out the other side on this thing.
Finally. We were definitely going through a phase where we were pretty much living off the current inventory we had. That we just, you know, what we were selling was basically covering the expenses, and made it really difficult to bring in anything new or replace anything that we had. So we were kind of just focusing on some of the newer product and trying to cover special orders that customers made. We did actually recently finally get our disaster relief loan from the Small Business Association.
Oh, right on.
So we're now in the process of restocking. You know, most of that money is going to go to filling the shelves again.
Yeah, I was going to say, because when I came in today, you had a table covered in huge distributor boxes, and you and your employee were unpacking product, and it was beautiful. It was always one of my favorite things.
It's like Christmas.
Every time. Oh my God, it's so good. If people want to stop by the shop, right, it is Game Nite, spelled game, new word, Nite. Yes. Is that right?
That is correct.
And then your website is GameNite.com?
Or GameNiteShop.
GameNiteShop.com. All right. And then if somebody's looking and they want to do some purchasing with you via the eBay, what's your eBay store? Same thing?
Yeah, same thing.
Okay. And then so primarily right now what you guys are doing is you're promoting your events. Mm-hmm. The shop's open 7 days a week.
Yes.
If I want to participate in an event, is that something I just contact the shop and say, hey, I want to be one of those 8 to 10 people?
Yeah.
And then if I want to reserve a table, do I just call and ask?
Yeah, you just call and ask. You know, we've got a logbook. We'll, you know.
And right now it's just a simple $5 fee.
$5 per person.
Are you getting any blowback on that?
Not much.
Well, that's good.
It's something I've actually have been very reluctant to do over the years, especially since there are so many stores in St. Louis and so many places that they could go to play. But with COVID right now, that's really not the case. A lot of them aren't open right now, or at least play space wise. Right. So we kind of did it as something to help supplement the store and help us kind of get through this lean time because of the virus. We may continue to do it in the future. We'll see, but it's something more we've just been kind of doing during the virus.
I am perplexed by the attitude that it is unreasonable to charge to use that space, right? We pay for so much in so many other facets of our life. And how large is your game room? Is it, it's what, 3,000 square feet?
Yeah, 3,000 to 4,000.
Yeah, so like damn near half of your store, that needs to generate revenue. Mm-hmm. And I'm with you. The sense of community generates revenue, but I don't think it's unreasonable with all of this terrain and these beautiful tables to ask somebody to throw a handful of quarters at you to use the table. Yeah, if they don't want to do that, then bugger off. That's what I say. Walker, it has been really a blast talking to you today, man. I appreciate it. I appreciate your candidness, and I have to say I think the store looks great, man.
Thank you.
I really do.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Why We Game is a production of the Influence Foundation. All rights reserved. Audio editing by Brodor. Music by Owen Godwin.